Somewhere in your house, there is a thermostat, maybe a heater, probably a blanket within arm's reach, and if you get cold tonight, you will fix it in about 30 seconds without thinking. Your ancestors did not have 30 seconds. They had darkness, wind, and a cold that did not stop. A cold that killed while you slept. A cold that turned fingers black, stopped hearts, and wiped out entire groups before morning. And the things they did to survive it, the actual documented archaeological things, are darker than most people are comfortable hearing. So let us talk about them. The first thing they did was wear the dead, not metaphorically, literally. The oldest known sewn clothing dates back roughly 300,000 years. Before that, ancient humans wrapped themselves in raw animal skins, fur still attached, sometimes still warm. Archaeologists have found ancient stone scrapers with wear patterns consistent with hours of hide processing. Someone sat, in the cold, scraping fat and tissue off the inside of a dead animal's skin so they could wear it before the cold killed them first. And here is the part that never makes it into textbooks. Researchers believe some groups in extreme cold climates may have worn freshly killed skins immediately, before curing, before drying, because a fresh skin retains body heat from the animal for hours, warm, wet, bloody, but alive another night. That is not primitive. That is engineering under impossible pressure. The second thing is harder to say. When food ran out in deep winter, and it did, regularly, completely, ancient humans faced a choice that no amount of modern comfort prepares you to understand. Starvation in extreme cold is not slow. Your body burns calories just maintaining temperature. When food disappears, that process accelerates. Researchers examining prehistoric sites from Ice Age Europe have found human bones with cut marks identical to the cut marks on animal bones at the same sites. Not burial marks, not ritual marks, processing marks. Anthropologists debate the specifics, whether this was survival cannibalism, ritual practice, or opportunistic consumption of already dead group members. But the bones do not debate. They exist across multiple sites, multiple time periods, multiple continents. This is the part most YouTube channels skip, but archaeology does not skip it, and neither should we. The darkest thing about it is not the act itself. It is the circumstance that created it. A group of humans, in the dark, in the cold, with no food, making the only calculation left available to them. They were not monsters, they were cold. Now here is the rehook, because the darkness goes in another direction too. Not all of it was about what they took. Some of the darkest survival decisions were about what they left behind. Elderly and severely injured members of a group represented a specific problem in extreme winter conditions. They consumed food and heat resources. They slowed movement. In a season where the difference between reaching the next shelter and not was measured in hours, that calculation had weight. Archaeological evidence from multiple Ice Age sites shows elderly individuals with healed injuries, meaning the group kept them alive through previous hardship. But other sites show a different pattern. Older skeletal remains found separated from main group burial sites without the care indicators seen in younger individuals. Researchers are careful not to overinterpret, but the evidence suggests that some groups, in the worst winters, made decisions about who could continue and who could not. They did not abandon their people easily. The healed injuries prove that. But winter, at its worst, forced conversations around fires that we cannot fully imagine today. The third darkest thing was what they did to children. In extreme cold climates, infants represented a survival paradox. A newborn requires constant body heat, constant feeding, and produces almost no caloric or labor contribution to the group. In a normal season, that is simply parenthood. In a killing winter with no food, it became a crisis calculation. Bioarchaeological research across Ice Age populations has documented elevated infant mortality rates that exceed what disease or natural death alone can explain. Researchers use careful language around this, but the data is consistent across too many sites to dismiss. What makes this genuinely disturbing is not that it happened, it is that it happened inside families, inside groups that also showed extraordinary care for their injured, their elderly, their sick. These were not brutal people. They were people in an impossible situation, making decisions that survival demanded. The cold did not just kill, it forced its own specific kind of cruelty onto people who, in better seasons, demonstrated everything we recognize as human decency. And then there was fire, because not everything ancient humans did in cold was dark. Some of it was quietly extraordinary. They learned to bank fires, burying embers in ash to preserve heat for hours without consuming fuel. They built the first shelters not from wood, but from mammoth bones, stacking skulls and leg bones into frameworks draped with hides. Archaeologists in Ukraine found 15,000-year-old structures built entirely from the bones of dozens of mammoths, not one mammoth, dozens, representing years of accumulated hunting, planning, and construction. They stored food in permafrost, the earliest refrigerators dug into frozen ground to preserve meat across seasons. They developed needle and thread technology to create fitted clothing that trapped body heat instead of just covering the body. A wrapped skin keeps you alive. A fitted garment keeps you warm. The difference between those two things is the difference between barely surviving and actually living. Here is what all of this means. Ancient humans in deep winter were not noble savages or brutal primitives. They were people, fully thinking, fully feeling people, being crushed between temperature and time, making decisions that ranged from ingenious to devastating, and somehow producing descendants who eventually built heated houses and forgot what any of it cost. You are sitting somewhere warm right now because someone somewhere in your ancestry made it through a winter that should have killed them. Maybe by wearing something still warm from a dead animal. Maybe by making a decision they never spoke about again. Maybe just by refusing, in the dark and the cold, to stop.